So there are different views on zoos. Some people think it's cruel to keep animals locked in small cages. Some see the benefits of zoos, and some just think it's neat to see animals up so close. With me working to become a zookeeper, I've learned about the many ways zoos help these species, and I've even gotten to work with the zookeepers at Pueblo Zoo and see how they've taken care of the animals that they have there. So I'm going to be talking to you today about what zoos are doing for conservation and how the animals' lives in zoos compare to how they are in the wild. Now, it is true that zoos haven't always been the best place for animals, but this began to change in the 1900s. So for most of the animals you see in zoos today, they were born and bred in captivity. They aren't taken from the wild anymore, unless it's absolutely necessary. And many zoos participate in breeding programs to ensure the survival of species and to ensure they have the genetic diversity they need in case they ever need to be reintroduced to the wild. So these are called species survival plans. And many zoos, some zoos participate in the SSPs and some don't. But if they don't, they usually make regular contributions to help their other facilities that do and other sanctuaries. So without zoos, we would not have kept certain species in existence. 29 of the 34 species that are classified as extinct in the wild are still actively bred in zoos today, and they're hoping to one day be able to release them back to the wild. Modern zoos focus on conservation, educating the public, and furthering wildlife research. So one thing I've learned in my canids class recently is about African painted dogs. And so African painted dogs in zoos, they noticed that they were shorter than what was seen in the wild. And they figured this out. It's due to they feed the African painted dogs twice a day in zoos. And in the wild, African painted dogs feed their pups multiple times a day. And so this is actually stunting their growth in zoos. But it's easily reversible. The pups that are shorter, if they start feeding them more times a day, they'll feed their pups more, and the pups are up to normal size. And this can also be seen in the wild in Africa, because there's a lot of tours that people will go on, safaris. They'll find the dens because everyone wants to see little pups because they're super cute. And so the mothers are spending more time protecting their pups. And so therefore the pups aren't eating as much and they aren't getting taller. And if they're not taller, they aren't able to kill the larger animals that they need to survive. So that's one thing that zoos have come to realize, and some of the research that will help and is helping the African painted dogs in the wild. So now that I've talked to you about how the zoos benefit conservation, let's talk about how this looks for the animals in the zoos. So animals in captivity live longer than if they were in the wild, such as coyotes. On average, they only live 3 years in the wild, but in captivity, they're known to live up to 15 years. And this is because there is no competition for food in zoos. They receive all the nutrients they need, and they receive regular vet care and vaccines. The keepers also give all of their animals enrichment, which can be edible, sensory, or environmental. And this helps to fight the stereotypic behaviors that can develop in captive animals and to draw out the behaviors that we would typically see in the wild. So now that we've talked about what zoos do for conservation, how they treat the animals, and how they take care of them, we can see that the animals in zoos are given the best life possible. I'm not saying that all animals belong in zoos, but I'm saying that the ones that are in zoos are taken care of and are helping the wild populations.